Welcome to the Product Prep and Production System. In the next few minutes, I will review this powerful tool and how to use it. The Product Prep and Production System is easy to use and does all the heavy lifting for you, saving you many hours of manual work. The Product Prep and Production System only requires that you are running Microsoft Excel 2013 or later. So let's dive in and take a look, and we'll start with looking at the toolbar at the very top of the page. There you can see a number of buttons that you will be using to interact with the Product Prep and Production System. Starting in the upper left-hand corner is the location for the store that you're working on, as well as the week ending that you'll be dealing with. Currently, there is no week selected, indicating that there is no data yet ready for the Product Prep and Production System. We will go through the process of selecting a week shortly. The next button is a calendar, and that button brings up a calendar where you can then actually select the latest week ending for that particular restaurant. We work in full weeks, so any week that has not yet been completed, you will not be allowed to select until that week has finished. Next, we have several groups of buttons. The first group is called the Production Group, and this is where we have pages such as Biscuit Production, Breakfast Production, Lunch Dinner Production. You might notice that currently these buttons are grayed out. Again, that indicates that there's no data currently for those buttons, and therefore there's no need to be on those pages, as they would be blank. Once we bring data into the Product Prep and Production System, those buttons will light up and allow you to access those pages. The next group is a Food Prep and group of buttons. Here you can see two buttons. One is for prep and one is for product tempering, and we'll get into more detail on all these as we start looking at these pages. The next group is for reports. Currently the reports that are available to you are hourly sales, and you can break your hourly sales down into hour, half hour, or quarter hour sales, and we'll look at how those different pages look once we get into those pages. Then there's a print button allowing you to print out your production charts, and then a settings button. This is where we set up and tell the program all the things that we would like to track, and we will get into much more detail on the settings page shortly. Finally, there's a group of miscellaneous buttons to allow for things like remote support, the About button telling you what version of the software we're on, and there's a Save button, and then finally there's a button to exit the program. So let's go ahead and tell this program kind of like what we'd like to do here. So we're going to start by clicking the Settings button, and this will take a moment to load settings for the software. Here we go. Once the setup page loads, you'll see that there are several tabs that you can interact with, ranging from database to breakfast levels, menu inventory tracking, prep, and tempering. The first tab is the database tab. There's very little that you'll be doing with this page. It'll be pre-configured for you mostly. You may interact with the options for the first day of the business week. If it's not set to the correct day of your first day of the week, you can change it here. And then there's also a location info button where you can indicate which store you're working on if you're in a group of stores that has multiple locations. Multiple locations will populate here, and you can select the proper location. The database credentials are not shown to you, as they're really not necessary for you to know. They'll be pre-configured and they'll work just fine with the way they're set up, and the way you can tell that they're properly set up is this database icon has turned green, and that indicates there's a good connection to the database. Should that be red, then there may be an issue with your online connectivity or incorrect credentials, but typically once this is working, this will always be green. You'll be working mostly in the breakfast levels and the other tabs. So let's take a look at what the breakfast levels tab looks like. Here is where you can configure your products to track that are dealing with breakfast. There's really three main areas on here. One is called categories, which is in the upper left-hand corner. And then you have your breakfast menu items. These are items that you want to know more about or you'd like to track sales of. And on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that there is an area here for breakfast heat well and over-shelf tracking. So let's take a look at how these work. Let's start with the categories. Your POS system most likely has your menu items grouped into categories of products. So this area here allows you to assign certain categories to filter. And let me show you what I mean by that. If I come over here to the breakfast menu items and I want to select some breakfast menu items, if I click the drop down area, you'll see that I have a list of all kinds of menu items. As a matter of fact, everything that's in your POS system will show up here. So you can see there's just all kinds of items here that you'll have to filter through to pick the items that you want. Well, we can make that a lot simpler by filtering this list to only the items that we're really interested in. And we do that over in the categories area. So if I click on Edit List, as you can see currently I'm not filtering anything. If I click on the button Edit List, now I get a list of all the categories that are set up in your POS system. So since I'm dealing with breakfast items, I'm going to select breakfast by checking here, breakfast platters, breakfast combos. If you're interested in breakfast sides, you can certainly select that. Breakfast specials is probably something I would be interested in. And then I'll click the update button. And you can see these items have now moved over to the right hand side. And if I missed one, I can go ahead and find it, add it, and click update again. It'll add it to the list. So if I'm satisfied with the items that I've selected, and for now this is satisfactory to me, I'll click the cancel close button. You'll get a reminder indicating that not to forget to apply this list to make the changes active. So I click OK, and this button here, apply filtered list, is now turned red, indicating that you still need to do something here. So I'm going to click this, and now I'm told that my drop-down lists have now been filtered to the items that are specifically only in those categories. So now if I look, you can see that all those other superfluous items are gone, and I'm only dealing with the items that I'm interested in, making selection much easier. You can see I've already selected a couple of menu items. I've selected bacon, egg, and cheese, and I've selected sausage and egg biscuits. And then also I have told the program what the holding time is for those products. Now here's a very important distinction between different POS systems. If you're working on a Lucas system, Lucas tracks their menu items slightly different than the Expient system. Lucas tracks a la carte items and combos separately. So if I want to know the total number of bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits that I'm selling, I would have to tell the program to add those all together and place them under bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. On the Expient system, that's not necessary. Expient automatically includes all combos in the a la carte total. So in order to accomplish that, on a Lucas system, there's a checkbox down here that you'll have to check that says my POS system tracks some or all of menu items separately, so I need to combine items in the total count. If you don't check that box, I'm going to uncheck it here. You can see all this is grayed out. You don't have access to any of these buttons. You do need access to these buttons to set up additional items if you're on a Lucas store. So I'm going to check that box, and I'm going to go ahead and just click this button that says you are including one more item. I've already pre-configured a couple of items, but I'm going to click that so you can see what that looks like. You'll get another screen that opens up, and that allows you to add additional items to track under the a la carte menu item. Always select the a la carte menu item in the drop-down box in the menu section here. Select the a la carte and then add any additional items to this box over here. For example, bacon, egg, and cheese combo. Now, if I had some coupons out for bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, I'd want to also include those because those are also tracked separately. So anything dealing with bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit would have to be included over here. The process is the same as selecting categories. Check the items that you want, click update, it moves it over to the right-hand side, and those items will then be included. I'm going to close that. Same thing for a sausage and egg biscuit. I have the sausage and egg biscuit as the a la carte, and then I can add an additional sausage and egg item, which in this case is the combo, because this is a Lucas store, and it'll add them together as one total. Over here, you can also sort this list. If it's easier for you, you can sort it by numerical number by clicking the numerical button here, or you can sort this list by alphabetical order by clicking the ABC button, or you can sort the list by items that I've selected by selecting the checkbox. So it makes it very easy for you to find what you're looking for. So I've got a couple of menu items selected here. You can add up to 10 menu items. You can change them periodically if you'd like to track different menu items that you're selling. On the left-hand side and the bottom, these are the proteins mostly, or your inventory items. They're not directly menu items, such as folded eggs, sausage, omelets, things that you would normally want to keep ready in the heat well. And you can select up to 9 of them. Click the drop-down list, and you can see there's a list of items that you can choose from. I've pre-selected 3 of them already, and I've included the hold time for those items. Hopefully I've got them correct, but if it's different than that, obviously you'd want to use a different hold time. At the very bottom, you have a couple of other options for some lower volume stores, especially in the cold weather months. You have the options to allow quarter-sized batches for your biscuit production, and it will calculate your biscuit production to the nearest quarter-sized batch. And also you have an area here where you can indicate what your expected yield is for a batch of biscuits. The Hardy standard is 52 biscuits, but nobody expects perfection, so the program defaults to 48. And if you find that number is either too strong or too weak, you can adjust that, and it will adjust your biscuit production accordingly. The last area on here has to do with breakfast levels, and those are the number of levels or breakdowns that you can have on your breakfast production sheet, and you'll see that in a moment. You can have up to 10 sales breakdowns, or as few as 4, or anything in between. And then you can also indicate what the minimum and maximum sales amount are for those categories, and the program will calculate the in between. So if you had 25 and 475 and you only had 6 categories or 6 breakfast levels, the program would calculate the breakfast levels that fall in between the minimum and maximum, and you'll see that here shortly. The next tab, very similar to this tab, except it deals with lunch dinner products. Again, we have a category list. Here we can edit the list by selecting lunch dinner products such as burgers or burger combos, and thick burger combos, specialty products, specialty combos, things that you sell in your store that are related to lunch dinner items. And your categories obviously will be different. Some have more categories, some have less. You can select up to 25 categories to filter on. If you're interested in kids meals, you can select kids meals as well. Click the update button, then cancel close, and apply this filtered list. And now only those items that are on the filtered list and fall into those categories will be displayed for you. Again, here you can select the a la carte item. Because we're a Lucas store, we have this box checked, and we will also be selecting additional items so that we get a sum total of all of those products that are affected or that add to the main a la carte item. So here it says we're including 3 more items. I'll click the box, and it shows me that I'm including a double cheeseburger combo, and it looks like I have a double cheese hot dog meal, and I have a double cheese onion ring meal. If those don't apply anymore, you can certainly edit those, but anything dealing with a double cheeseburger would be included here so that the sum total of double cheeseburger is accurate and includes anything that deals with double cheeseburgers. Lower left, similar to the breakfast inventory tracking, but this is for lunch dinner, so this will include all your lunch dinner proteins, your sliders, your meats, your grilled chicken, spicy chicken fillets, anything dealing with lunch dinner, you can track here by selecting up to 9 of those items. Let's go on to the prep and temper page. On the prep page, this has to do with your food prep, your morning prep, or afternoon prep, or whenever you do your prep. Here's where you can select items that you want the program to calculate some prep levels for you. So one of the distinctions you'll have to make is for cookies. If you include cookies in your kids' meal, you'd want to select that. You have a variety of different items that deal with prepping. Perhaps it's cooked roasts. If you're selling roast beef, it's hot ham and cheese portions. It's omelet mix. These are the items currently that are able to be tracked by the product prep and production system. I'll do the hot ham portions. We'll have 3 of them here. The next column here is called the build to percent, or what we call the safety factor. By default, the safety factor is 100%, so it's taking a look at 100% of your of your historical sales for the week that we're dealing with. And if you want to give yourself a little cushion, then you can increase that safety factor by 5-10% or whatever you think is appropriate. The range here is from 50% all the way up to 300%. Typically, going slightly above is a best practice to make sure that you're not shorting yourself here on prepped items. You can have up to 15 items that you can track for prepping. For tempering, similar, but it has some additional information the program needs. So in the left-hand column, you'll have the temper items, for example, 3-to-1 patties and roast beef, things that you're dealing with on tempering, buns, sourdough bread, etc. There's an extensive list, and you can have up to 15 items. I'll just pick a couple of them. And if the thawed time, I believe it's 12 hours. I could be wrong. Shelf life, if it's not 5 days, again, you'd want to tell it what the correct shelf life is. Roast beef, I believe, is 24 hours. And I believe shelf life is 4 days. If that's not correct, you want to be sure that you set the correct settings here. And again, the build to safety factor, and if you know that you've got a promotion coming up that you're going to need additional product, you can increase that. If you're just coming off a promotion, your numbers will be skewed somewhat high. You can actually reduce that below 100%. So I'll set that to 110, and I'll set this to 110. So those are the tabs that you use to set up various things that you want to track of in the program, that you want that program to handle for you. Once you've made those changes, you can click the Accept button. Notice there's an Accept button on every single page. You can click Accept after you've finished each page, or you can set them all up and then click Accept. It doesn't matter. Any page that has an Accept button, once you click the Accept button, everything that was changed on all of the pages will be updated. So it's not just dealing with that particular page, but everything that was changed will be saved and updated. So now I've made those changes and I'm finished here in my settings. I will now close this, and now since I have no week selected, there's no data still. So now I'm going to click the Select Week button, and I am going to select, it will actually pre-select for you the latest completed week as of the date of my recording. So I'll click the third here, and the program now will go to the cloud. All the data is contained in an online database that is tied to your group of restaurants, and it will grab the data that it needs based on what you told it you're interested in. That could take just a few seconds, it could take a minute, it just depends on your internet speed and if there's congestion on the internet. So this went fairly quickly, so I'll click OK. And now notice the buttons are no longer grayed out, and I have data that I can now take a look at. So let's take a look at the first one under production for biscuits. This is the biscuit production sheet. And this production sheet may look very familiar to you if you used to calculate these things manually. You notice there's no information on here yet, and that's because we need to select some data or a day of the week. So since this is backward looking, we need to tell it which day we want to look back to determine what we need for this week. So let's just look back to Friday of 2/1/2019, which was a Friday. And it now has populated with some data. It says this is same Friday, last week's breakfast sales, same Friday, last week total biscuits sold. This is total biscuits. This is for the entire day. We're down here, this is a breakdown by hour of biscuits, of sales and biscuits that are needed in the cooler and batches needed to satisfy the business. You may find there are times when you add up all your biscuits in the cooler that they don't match this total biscuits sold. And that could be because we're only tracking till 11 o'clock. So on a Sunday, for instance, if on Sunday you sell 5 biscuits at 11:05, just slightly past that 11 a.m. cutoff, your total biscuit sales will be slightly higher because we're only tracking here by hour through 11 o'clock. So don't be alarmed by that. You can also notice here that there's 3 options for you to use this data. The single week would take a look at the week that was just completed, or whatever week you have selected would be considered the single week. So it looks back to last week in this case. You can also click the 3-week average button, and now all of this is recalculated on the fly, and it shows you a 3-week average. It'll tell you 3-week average Friday breakfast sales, 3-week average Friday total biscuits sold, or if you want a larger average, you can go back 6 weeks. 3 weeks seems to be kind of the sweet spot, and lots of folks like to use the 3-week average. So as you can see, here's your production chart for breakfast for biscuits for this Friday, based on whatever single week, 3-week, or 6-week average. And you would have one of these for each day of the week. And printing these out and having those available for your baker is one of the workflows that we'll talk about as we get towards the end of this review and presentation. Let's take a look at the next tab, which is the breakfast production. Here is the breakfast production page, and we need to tell it a look back date, and let's go back to last Friday and 2/1, and this is a single week. Again, you could do 3-week average or 6-week average, and now what it's showing me is the menu items that we selected in the setup, in the settings tab under breakfast, as well as the heat shelf and over shelf items. And currently we had folded eggs, sausage, and omelets selected. In the yellow, these are the quantities for the entire breakfast day. So we sold 15 bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, 6 sausage and egg biscuits, and this is how much we used of each of these items in the heat well / over shelf section. And then here are the sales levels. If you recall, on the breakfast tab, I indicated that you could have up to 10 sales levels. Well, this is what I'm talking about. So here are levels 1 through 10, and then the volumes were listed at 25 minimum, 475 maximum, and then everything else in between is calculated by the program. So if you don't think that you need this many breakdowns, this many sales levels, you can certainly shorten that to 4 or 6. And then if these volumes are not appropriate, you can change the minimum and maximum for the number of categories that you've selected, and then you'll get less categories on these pages in the future. So it's indicating the various levels and products that you should have available if you anticipate those hourly volumes for that particular breakfast day. On the menu items and on the menu items only, you can also take a look and see what this number consists of. This only works in the menu items. It does not work down in the heat well over shelf items. If I double click on this number here, I get another window, and it shows me of those 15 bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, 11 were by themselves and 4 were in a combo for a total of 15. If I had selected a 3-week average and I double click, now I have the ability to see even more detail. I can click this arrow here, and it shows it to me by week of the breakdown of the items that you have selected. The levels to use today is a very handy feature. Once you have these sheets printed out each morning, you can pre-fill these items in. Say, for example, that you anticipate from 7 to 8 that you're going to do $175. You just put a check mark under 7 to 8, and the crew should then know that from 7 to 8, because the check mark is in this column, you want them to be on level 4, and this then will tell them what they should keep ready to handle the volume at that level. So this would be a good thing to fill out every morning prior to breakfast. Put check marks or X's whatever level you want them to be on at the various hours during breakfast. This is not something that you can enter here on this page. You manually put that in the day of that particular breakfast shift. Let's take a look at the next page, which is lunch dinner production. And again, I need to select a day, so I'll select Friday. And here you can see our inventory items that we told the program we were interested in, as well as the menu items that we were interested in. Here again, you can have a 3-week or 6-week average. I can double click the menu item to see my breakdown based upon each week if you're interested in that. Again, only the menu item will allow you to do that. The layout here is somewhat different. These are basically telling you what you're selling or what you're using in quarter-hour increments. So at the top you'll see the hour, 10 till 11, and then you have a quadrant of 4 times. The first 15 minutes, second 15, third, and then from the 45 to the top of the hour. So as you can see here, from 10:45 to 11, I use 2 9-to-1s for a total of 3 during that particular hour. And that works the same way all the way across. Everything is in quarter-hour increments. If I scroll to the right, you can see there's more, since we have an evening to deal with also here, 5 to 6, all the way up to midnight. The colors are different here because when these sheets print out, you'll get 2 sheets, one with the blue labels on top if you happen to have color. But you get 2 sheets. You get one for the day shift and you get one for the night shift that you can post in your backline. So this is your tracking for proteins and your lunch dinner menu items. Let's go now to the food prep page. Here's where you tell your food preppers what you want them to be doing every day. You can have a single week average, 3 week, or 6 week. And there's only one page that will print out for the entire week. What this is doing, it's calculating its expected usage based upon your history as well as that safety factor that you have calculated. Now, the reason that we see some zeros here, that store may not have been open the previous week, and it wasn't. This particular store was not open because it was a snowy, icy day that day. So let's take a look at how to use this, and maybe I'll just slide this to the 3-week average to get some better numbers. So each day when it's time for prep, or in the morning before it's time for prep, the manager in charge should take a look at what this sheet is telling them. So here it's saying we should have we're going to need 3 pans of cookies with 12 cookies on a pan. And now if we have cookies left over, obviously we don't want to prep 3 more pans or we'll start to stockpile product. So the manager in charge should then take a look at what the carryover is from the previous day, and then in this box write in what the amount to prep is. So your preppers will always be working on the amount to prep line, not on this line. This is the calculated line, but we have to take into account what's left over, and obviously the program can't do that because it doesn't know what's left over. So that's where the manager in charge takes a few minutes, takes a look, fills that in, and then fills in the amount to prep. Works the same way for anything else that you may be prepping that day. And they would do that every day. So this was probably going to be in a clipboard somewhere in the prep area, and then every morning the appropriate areas are filled out on this sheet. So you can't fill these out ahead of time. They have to be filled out the day of. Product tempering, let's take a look. Very similar. I'll just do a 3-week average here. And this will show me what the product is, what the data to use, and what the units are. So in this case, it's 8 thirds on a tray. And this again is telling me what's my build to. So on this day, there's 22 trays. I need to look and see what I have on hand in the sales area already, and any product that's already in the cooler prepped and tempering, so that this is then the amount to temper. Again, it's very similar to the prep sheet, except you have a couple of areas that you may have product. You have to inventory those and to deduct those from the build to come up with the amount to temper. If you don't do this and just blindly do this, you're going to be stockpiling product in your cooler, and obviously we want to avoid that. So again, each morning the morning manager would just take a quick look, fill this area out on the appropriate item, and then indicate the amount to temper. And there's also a spot at the bottom for initials for whoever completed that tempering sheet for that day. So that's your prep sheet, your food prep sheet. So let's take a look at, under reports, hourly sales. Here you can see the hourly sales. You can have it under 3-week average. You can have a 6-week average of your hourly sales. If you prefer to have it by half an hour, click the half an hour sales button at the top. And if you like quarter-hour sales, click it by quarter hour, and you'll get those same or very similar
quadrants for first 15 minutes, second, third, and fourth for each hour, and then the total sales for that hour. So that is your sales report that you can look at or print out as you see fit. Next, let's take a look at the Print Reports button. This is how you get your reports out of the system. When I click the Print Reports button, I'm presented with a print screen that has several areas. The first is called the Report Group. So anything that you select here will print as a group. So if I select Biscuit charts, I will get 7 days of Biscuit charts, one for each day of the week. The program automatically inserts the correct day of the week and prints that report out for you. So you'll have 7 sheets. Same process for daily breakfast level charts. You'll get 7 sheets. The program automatically prints those for you. Likewise for daily track lunch dinner items, 7 sheets. Actually, you'll get 7 days, I should say, but you'll get 14 sheets because each day has 2 day parts. It has the lunch day part and then the evening day part. So you'll get 2. Otherwise, the sheet would become too crowded with information and the print would be too small, so we break it into 2 sheets. If you prefer to have the hourly sales sheet print, you can select that and then tell it whether you want the full hour, half hour, or quarter hour. And then 1 sheet for food prep and 1 sheet for tempering. So if you're interested in all of these sheets, you can just select the Select All button and it will select all of these for you. The other thing that you have on the right-hand side here are 3 buttons for each line, and those indicate single week, 3-week average, or 6-week average. And this allows you to set these without having to go back into the individual sheets and set the whether you want single week, 3-week, or a 6-week average. Let's say that you have your Biscuit charts set to a single week on the Biscuit chart sheet. The program would then print out 7 sheets for using the single week button on the sheet itself rather than on here, since nothing is selected. But if you decide, you know what, I'd rather have a 3-week average, you don't have to go back to the Biscuit production sheet to tell it I want a 3-week average. Just select it here. This will override anything that you've set on the Biscuit production sheet itself. So even if you have single week selected on the Biscuit production sheet, this will make that change for you when it prints out the sheets. And that's the same applies to all the other items. And then you click print, make sure you have ink and paper in your printer, and away she goes, and you'll have all your sheets and you're ready to go. There's another area on here called Current on Screen, and this works slightly different. Let's say you've got all your sheets printed out, but for some reason one of your sheets, maybe it's Wednesday of your Biscuit charts, you spill coffee on that sheet. Well, rather than printing out all 7 days, what you can do is just go to your Biscuit production sheet, click the print button, so make sure that you have the correct day selected. So I'll select Wednesday in this case. I want a 3-week average. I click the print button and I select print the currently selected on-screen report. So if I click print now, I'm going to get 1 sheet and I'm going to get what's on my screen. So make sure you have that screen first selected before you click this. So this is how you can reprint or print any sheet for any day without having to print all 7 or 14 sheets in some cases. So this is the print or select and print reports page. You'll be using this a lot. So become familiar with it as you'll be using that in your workflow. Speaking of workflow, let's talk about the workflow. Typically, the way this works is on your first day of the week is when you would come into this program and select a new week, which would be 1 week later, typically, than the last time you used the program. And then you can either look at the reports first, if you'd like, or go straight to your print reports page and tell it to print out all my reports. Once you have all your reports, you can close the program and you're done. Whole process might not take more than about a minute. And that's the workflow. Now, you may go into it to reprint some sheets that perhaps, again, maybe you spilled something on them or you lost them. on other days of the week, but typically most people will just go in on the first day of of their business week and print out the sheets for the upcoming week. And that's your workflow. Finally, we have some miscellaneous buttons. These are the remote support button. If there's an issue, you have a question, you want me to see your screen, I will direct you to push that remote support button, which allows me to connect to your PC and allows me to see your screen so that I can help you. The About button simply gives you a splash screen telling you what version you're on, when it was released, who it's licensed to, and this little icon indicating your license is valid and it was able to read or reach the validation server. Everything's green, so everything's good. If this was yellow or red, that would typically mean that there's a problem with the license, or there's a problem connecting to the license server. And it will allow you to continue to use the software, but if you continue to have issues connecting to the license server, eventually the software will stop running and you'll have to contact me. A Save button. Simply, if you click it, the program will save anything that you've changed on here. And then finally, the Exit button, which will exit and close the program. So that's really it. It's simple, fast, saves you an enormous amount of time. And once you're comfortable with it, I think you'll find that it will save you in a lot of manual work, as well as helping to control your waste and making sure that you have the right products available at the right time to ensure that you give the best service to your customers. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy this product, and if you have any suggestions, please let me know. Thanks.